Storytime on how my password got leaked onto Roblox. This one day, I was on Roblox. I was maybe around the age 7, 8. I was in those really catchy games called like Escape McDonald's or Escape whoever, you know? As I was in all those like games, I'd always join a server with 3 noobs. Not noobs as in bacon hair. Noobs as in yellow, green, blue skin. I didn't think much about it until this one day. I was in one of those catchy games. As I was in it, I made it to this one part of the stage where I saw 3 of the noobs like huddled together in a circle. I was kind of confused, like what's happening, so I was just walking around and like investigating or something. I saw them chatting things. I was like really, really nervous. You will not believe what they chatted. Like for part 2. And thank you so much for the support. Part 2 on how my password got leaked onto Roblox. As I was investigating the noobs, I noticed they were typing something that I didn't feel comfortable about. They kept on typing my password. Not as in typing like they say it once and then they move on. They typed it like 5 or 6, maybe even more times. As they were typing it, people in the chat were going question mark, question mark. They were on a different level, so I couldn't really see them saying it, but I saw it in the chat. So I kind of felt uncomfortable. I just thought maybe they were talking about something else. It doesn't have to be my password. So I just kept on finishing the obby. Then I made it to this other point, maybe like 5 stages later. I saw the 3 exact same noobs, and they were just sitting by each other like a line. I was wondering, do they have admin to this game or something? But now that I think of it, they were hackers, so of course they did. As they were sitting down, they were leaking my password again. But as they were leaking my password, it came with a little more surprise.
This one time when I was little, I thought I could talk to trees, because I had no friends, and I used to sit by them and say things, and one day I was talking to my tree friend called Kevin, and this girl went up to me and said, "Are you talking to that tree, freak?" And I started crying and hugged onto the tree, and while she was laughing, one of the branches fell on the girl's head. Thanks, Kevin.
I used to live in this really terrible apartment building, and on my floor there were these 2 guys who had those samurai swords that you might hang on the wall if you're into that. And one day they got into a pretend samurai sword fight in the hallway. But then the samurai sword fight turned real, and one guy got stabbed and had to go to the hospital, and he ended up being fine, but his blood was all over the hallway, and the landlord didn't clean it up. And I thought, isn't this really unsanitary? And it was really hot that summer, and the hallway started to smell like that guy's decaying body. And one time I saw him and I said, "This is what you're gonna smell like when you die." And he didn't think it was funny, and I was like, "Whatever, dude, you lost a fake samurai sword fight."
I didn't realize that in 4th grade this little girl was trying to gaslight me. I think she was a new student. And I was like, ooh, new friend. Everyone really liked her. She had really nice hair, and she was just like a really good speaker. And like immediately she already had like a circle of friends. And I wanted to be in that circle. She starts telling everybody about her incredible adventures. And she tells everyone that over break she went to Honduras and that her family is from there. Me, being Honduran and having spent my entire summer in Honduras, was like, oh my gosh, I went to Honduras too. I cannot explain to you the anger that ensued upon me. Immediately she looked at me and she goes, no, you didn't. And I'm like, yeah, I did. No, do you even speak Spanish? Yeah, I do. Prove it. Prove that you went to Honduras. How? How do I prove it? She was thinking that I was lying in order to get attention, so she was trying to get that attention back. But I wasn't lying. I spent the rest of free time in the bathroom crying. The next day, I brought pictures from our trip. She's like, you could have gotten those from the internet. What? You could have taken those anywhere. I wish I could go back in time. You prove you were in Honduras.
In kindergarten, there was this girl named Emily who was 5 years old, and she had this beautiful golden long blonde hair, and she had the coolest toys. She had the Build-A-Bear with roller skates, and she also stole both of my friends, Claire and Sylvie. I'm keeping the names in just like Taylor Swift. Anyway, they were my only 2 friends, and she told them that they could not play with me. And she also made them eat dirt and threatened them, and she was terrible. So I told the teacher, but the teacher was in her last year before retirement, so she decided not to do anything, obviously. But one day at lunch, I was sitting there, and I guess Emily was sitting next to me, because as I was opening my lunch, I realized that my mom had packed my favorite snack, chocolate pudding, and I was so excited. And as I was opening it up, I remember so clearly the thought that went through my mind of how beautiful Emily's golden blonde hair would be with that dark brown of the chocolate. So I dumped it on her head.
This is why you should never eat tasty cakes and why I can't ever look at a coffee cake the same. So a couple years ago, my dad went to my uncle's house to come visit, but he was super hungry. He asked my uncle if he had any snacks. My uncle, of course, said yes. Then my dad went to his kitchen and saw that he had tasty cake coffee cakes. Boy, he was excited because my dad loves sweets. He went to go sit down to watch the game with my uncle, but when he took a bite of the cake, he said it tasted really moist. He half of it, then noticed that some of the crumbs on the tasty cake disappeared. When he took a better look at the cake, he realized that the tasty cake crumbs were maggots.
I made my teacher cry. Story time. When I was in 2nd grade, I had this teacher and she was the devil, and we're gonna name her Miss Jackson. And the reason I call her a devil is because she would say really mean things to me to my face. She would be like, Ty, stop talking like that, you sound like a little girl. Or, your favorite color can't be pink, you have to choose one of the boy colors. And since I was so young, I didn't understand how serious these things were, and I didn't know I can get her in trouble. And I would go home sad like every single day. Eventually my mom noticed and she asked me what was wrong. So I told her some of the things that Miss Jackson would say to me, and my mom was mad. And my mom was like, the next time she says something to you, say something rude back, and if you get in trouble, I'll handle her from there. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. Now, Miss Jackson was a heavy lady, so I knew if I said something rude to her, it would be about her weight. Though we don't body shame around here. We don't do that, okay? So I'm in school eating lunch with my friends who happen to be girls, and Miss Jackson comes up to me and she's like, shouldn't you be eating with the boys? So I looked at her and I was like, shouldn't you be eating a salad? And the lunchroom started laughing, and then she started crying.
So last week I got my wisdom teeth taken out and I thought I was prepared, but there is something that nobody told me about. I had to find out the hard way. My wisdom teeth were impacted, so it was kind of a more complicated surgery. Because I'm kind of freaked out with medical stuff, I didn't build up the courage to actually look at my mouth until last night. And big mistake. Apparently after you get impacted wisdom teeth removed, it leaves behind a black hole. Not a normal looking missing tooth. Like it's just a hole. Like you can't see the bottom of it. There is just a literal hole in my mouth. So after I looked at it, I was freaking out and I thought I was gonna faint. So I asked my fiance Anthony to take a look at it because he had his wisdom teeth taken out last year, you know, like to see if it looked normal. So his teeth weren't impacted, so I guess his didn't look like that. I kid you not, he looks into my mouth and passes out. This man literally fainted. Like, wow, Anthony, thanks for making me feel better. Anyway, apparently it's like a totally normal thing, but I just wasn't expecting to see that.
Okay, so story time. So let's start from the beginning. I have 2 brothers. We'll call the oldest one Mark and the youngest one Robert. So my brother Mark moved to New York for college, so once in a while we go and visit him. My parents decided before my summer break ended to go and visit Mark for like a little vacation, because why not? So my parents are the type of people who like to get to airports hours before our flight. So we get there, go through security and buy some snacks. The lines were long, so it took up some time. We headed in our area and we looked through the windows and it was thundering and raining really hard. A few minutes later, the speakers come on and they say our flight is delayed. So we're like, okay, whatever, we'll just wait, because what else are we gonna do? So around 2 hours pass, my dad goes up to the front desk where our gate is and asked if our plane was ready. He said no, so we waited a little bit longer. Then my dad asked again, and they said no again. And this happened for like 4 more times. So finally they said yes, we're literally waiting for you guys, you're delaying the plane. Like, huh? Like for part 2. Part 2. We grabbed all our stuff, ran to the gate, went through, and went on the plane. Once we got on the plane, everyone was so mad. Before we even stepped foot on the plane, everyone was yelling at us, booing us, saying it's our fault they're late to whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's our fault the plane is delayed. There was even this one point where a lady started clapping, saying, finally, you guys made us wait long enough. Our parents got mad and kind of started yelling back, but she was being rude, to the point where we all almost got kicked out. But luckily we didn't. But it literally wasn't our fault. The person in the front desk wasn't telling us anything till the last minute. But anyways, we put everything away, we sat in our seats. My mom was a little embarrassed, but I just didn't care. And neither did my dad.
Story time, how I didn't know I was deaf until I was 16. So the school district that I grew up in basically did hearing tests every single year. And for as long as I could remember, I was failing those tests. But they would always ask me one question after them. Have you been sick within the last few weeks? I always was sick when I was younger, so I'd say yes. And they'd say, oh, your sinuses are probably just clogged up. And I was like, whatever, I'm in the 2nd grade. And then I'd go on about my day. kept happening over and over again. This happens from elementary school, middle school, all the way up until my sophomore year of high school. So my sophomore year, I get called up to the nurse's office after the initial hearing test. My nurse was like, hey, you failed the hearing test. And I was like, yeah, what else is new? That was just normal to me. So she was like, you know what, we're gonna retest you here. So I retest right in front of her and I fail again. I explained to her like, this has happened every year, like it's not really a big deal to me. And she was like, no, it kind of is a big deal, like this happens every year. I was like, yes. Have they ever contacted your parents? No. So she calls my mom in to talk to her. My mom comes in, they talk. Part 2. Part 2. So I get sent over to a primary care doctor to get a hearing test there. Fail it. They send me over to an audiologist. Fail it. They send me over to a fancier audiologist and they do a different test on me. They put these little things that look like earbuds in your ears. I don't even know how they do this test, but basically they were just shooting super loud noise in my ears and measuring something inside my head. I don't know. I was like, cool, they're gonna realize that like there's nothing wrong with me. Fail it. Worse than before. So I start getting concerned. They couldn't give me a diagnosis yet, so all I knew is that my hearing is worse than I thought, but I don't know why. So they send me over to an ENT surgeon. He diagnoses me with otosclerosis, which just means the little bones in my ears that are supposed to conduct sound aren't conducting sound properly. This doctor gives me 2 options. I can either get hearing aids, or I could get the surgery where they replace those bones with synthetic bones that may help my hearing. The recovery process was kind of long, and it could go wrong and I could lose my hearing completely. Almost 4 years later, I love my hearing aids and I love being a part of the deaf community.
Hey Siri, how do you like my new phone case?
Time about how I almost died on a roller coaster. So me and my aunt went to Six Flags for the holidays and we planned to get on one of the roller coasters. So when we arrived at Six Flags we got ice cream and then we headed towards one of the rides. So we waited at the line for the ride and when it was finally our turn to get on the ride I sat on the seat and I buckled up and that's when the ride started. So while we are on the roller coaster I realized that I didn't buckle myself tight enough and then I started to panic and when the roller coaster went upside down I almost fell off of the seat but my aunt grabbed me and made sure that I didn't fall off. So that is my story and I am never going to get on a roller coaster ever again.